The machinery of the American judicial system is often described as a blindfolded figure holding scales. It is supposed to be impartial and unyielding, but those of us who have watched the decay of the American empire know better. The system is not blind. It is selective. It does not seek truth. It seeks stability for the ruling class. When the crimes of the elite threaten to expose the rot at the heart of the oligarchy, the system convulses. We are witnessing such a convulsion right now. A federal judge has just dropped a bombshell ruling that disrupts the carefully curated narrative surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell saga. It is a development that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Washington and Palm Beach. This is not because of what it reveals about new crimes. It is because of what it exposes about the government's cynical manipulation of justice. Welcome to this report. I am Chris Hedges. Today we must dissect a legal earthquake that has significant implications for transparency, for justice, and for the terrified victims of a sex trafficking ring that serviced the appetites of the global elite. On Tuesday, Judge Paul Engelmeyer of the Southern District of New York granted a request to unseal a voluminous set of records from the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. We are not talking about a routine document dump. We are talking about grand jury transcripts, financial records, travel logs, and thousands of pages of evidence used to convict the woman who procured children for abuse. This order comes as a direct result of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This is a piece of legislation signed into law by President Trump just last month. But here is the paradox. It is the cruel joke at the center of this story. The very administration that championed this law as a victory for transparency is now being excoriated by a federal judge. They are being criticized for using it as a political weapon while endangering the victims they claim to protect. Judge Engelmeyer's 24-page order is not just a procedural directive. It is an indictment of the Department of Justice. He reveals that the government paid lip service to the victims while treating them with callous disregard. He exposes how the DOJ misled the public. They promised bombshells where there were none. They oversold the contents of these files to score political points while leaving the survivors of abuse in the dark. These women were left terrified that their identities would be exposed to a voyeuristic public. This is the reality of transparency in a collapsing empire. It is not a tool for accountability. It is a tool for distraction. The judge warned us explicitly. Do not expect these files to identify new powerful men. Do not expect them to reveal the circumstances of Epstein's convenient death. The files confirm only what we already know. They confirm that Maxwell and Epstein were monsters. But the way these files are being released tells us everything we need to know about the monsters who currently run our government. Why is this happening now? Why, with the December 19th deadline looming, is the system scrambling? Because Congress decided to override the sacred secrecy of grand jury proceedings in a rare moment of bipartisan fervor. They shattered a centuries-old norm. In doing so, they have unleashed a chaotic process. Political appointees are scrambling to redact names. Victims are writing desperate letters to the court, and the specter of a presidential pardon for a convicted sex trafficker hangs over the proceedings like a dark cloud. We are about to walk through the details of this ruling. We will discuss the firing of the prosecutor who put Maxwell behind bars. We will look at the terrifying possibility that justice is being traded for silence. But first, we must understand that what is being sold to you as justice is nothing more than theater. The real story is not in the files. It is in the cover-up. I want to ask you a question before we go deeper. Do you believe the government actually wants the truth about Epstein to come out? Or is this Transparency Act just another layer of the cover-up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let us look closely at what Judge Engelmeyer wrote. It is rare to see a federal judge dismantle the Department of Justice with such precision. He did not merely grant the release of documents, he exposed a moral failure. He wrote that the victims' concerns about privacy and protection regrettably have a basis. Think about what that sentence means. Survivors of horrific sexual abuse went to the government for protection. These were women who were hunted as children by predators with unlimited resources, and the government failed them. The judge pointed out that in 2 separate applications, the DOJ failed to treat these women with the care and respect they deserve. In July, the Justice Department moved to unseal these grand jury materials without even notifying the victims. Let that sink in. The state prepared to release the details of their trauma to the world without a single phone call. They did not give a single warning. It was only when the court intervened and asked where the victims were that the government bothered to give them a heads up. When these women finally learned what was happening, they expressed distress. They were terrified. They wrote to the court fearing that their names and their lives would be dragged through the mud again. And why? For what purpose? The judge's ruling provides the devastating answer. It was for nothing. He wrote that the Justice Department misled the victims and the public. The government claimed these materials were essential for transparency. They hinted that they contained significant new information. They dangled the promise of exposing the elite. But after reviewing the files himself, Judge Engelmeyer concluded that nothing in them would add to public knowledge. Everything of substance was already public. The DOJ knew this. Yet they pushed for release anyway. They oversold the contents. They risked the privacy of victims. All of this was done to feed a media cycle. This is the definition of performative governance. It is the use of human suffering as a prop for political theater. The judge has now stepped in to do the job the Justice Department refused to do. He has ordered Jay Clayton to personally certify that every single piece of victim-related information is redacted. Jay Clayton is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Trump appointee. The judge is holding a political appointee personally responsible for the safety of these women. That is a significant and damning level of judicial oversight. But we must ask why the Justice Department would act this way. Why would they risk the safety of victims for files that contain nothing new? The answer lies in the nature of the current administration. They are not interested in justice. They are interested in the appearance of justice. They want to claim they opened the files, even if those files are empty. They do not care if the process re-traumatizes the very people the system is supposed to protect. This betrayal is not an accident. It is a feature of a system that views victims not as citizens with rights, but as inconveniences. The judge's order is a desperate attempt to place guardrails around a Justice Department that has gone rogue. It is a department that seems more interested in headlines than in the hard and quiet work of protecting the vulnerable. We are seeing a pattern here. Last week, a judge in Florida ordered the release of transcripts from abandoned investigations into Epstein from 2005 and 2007. The courts are following the directive from Congress. But in New York, Judge Engelmeyer is shouting a warning. Transparency without humanity is just another form of abuse. I want to hear from you on this specific point. Do you trust the current Department of Justice to protect the identities of these victims, or do you think their privacy will be sacrificed for political gain? Tell me what you think in the comments. To understand the true darkness of this moment, we must look at the fates of 2 women. One is Ghislaine Maxwell. She is the convicted sex trafficker sitting in a federal prison. The other is Maureen Comey. She is the prosecutor who put her there. Maureen Comey is not a name known to most Americans. She spent a decade in the Southern District of New York. She built a reputation as a relentless prosecutor of sex crimes. She was the assistant U.S. attorney who stood in court and methodically dismantled Maxwell's defense. She secured a conviction on 5 felony counts. She is also the daughter of James Comey. He is the former FBI director fired by Donald Trump in 2017. In July of this year, the pressure to release the Epstein files reached a boiling point. At that exact moment, the Justice Department fired Maureen Comey. There was no explanation. There was no notice. There was no hearing. She was terminated the day after her supervisors asked her to lead a major public corruption case. She had received an outstanding performance review just 3 months prior. This was not a firing based on merit. This was a purge. Maureen Comey wrote a farewell letter to her colleagues that should chill every career civil servant to the bone. She warned that fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. She wrote that fear is the tool of a tyrant and it is wielded to suppress independent thought. She has since filed a lawsuit. She alleges she was fired because of her father or her perceived politics or both. Think about the message this sends. You can successfully prosecute one of the most powerful and well-connected criminals in history, but the government will still destroy you if your last name is inconvenient. And while the prosecutor is purged, what happens to the prisoner? Ghislaine Maxwell is serving 20 years. Her conviction is final. The Supreme Court denied her appeal in October. Yet reports are swirling that she is preparing a commutation application for the Trump administration. A whistleblower has told House Democrats that Maxwell is seeking a reduction in her sentence. The whistleblower claims she is receiving preferential treatment in prison. When asked about pardoning Maxwell, President Trump has refused to rule it out. He said he would have to take a look at it. He said he is allowed to do it. He has never said no. He has never said she is a monster who belongs in a cage. He leaves the door open. Why would a president entertain clemency for a woman convicted of trafficking children? The ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, fears a transactional arrangement. The concern is that Maxwell might be offering something. Perhaps it is silence. Perhaps it is convenient testimony. She may be offering this in exchange for her freedom. We are witnessing a grotesque inversion of justice. The prosecutor who served the public is fired. The trafficker who served the elite is courted. This is how a mafia state operates. Loyalty to the leader is prized above the law. Competence is punished if it is not accompanied by absolute submission. The firing of Maureen Comey and the flirtation with Maxwell's pardon are two sides of the same coin. They signal to every prosecutor and every judge and every victim that the rules have changed. Justice is no longer blind. It is transactional. It is a commodity to be traded by those with power. And let us not forget the timing. Comey was fired as the administration tried to manage the release of these files. Some suggest she was a scapegoat. She was a distraction from the fact that the files were boring, as Trump himself admitted. If you cannot give the mob the conspiracies they want, you give them a human sacrifice. Maureen Comey was that sacrifice. This raises a disturbing question that we need to confront. Do you believe Maureen Comey was fired because of her name, or was she removed to clear the path for a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell? Leave your answer below. Let us step back and look at the totality of what is happening. We have a Congress that passed a law mandating transparency. They were responding to a public that rightly demands to know the truth about the Epstein ring. But that law is being implemented by a Justice Department that has been hollowed out. It has been politicized. It has been rebuked by the courts for its cruelty to victims. We have a deadline of December 19th. In the coming days, thousands of pages will be released. We will see financial records. We will see travel logs. We will see search warrant returns. We may see photographs of the properties where innocence was stolen. These documents will fill in the grim details of the machinery of abuse. But Judge Engelmeyer has told us what not to expect. We will not see the names of the powerful men who flew on the planes. We will not see the clients. The system has successfully protected them. The release will be a data dump of logistics. It will not be a revelation of complicity. And as these files drop, we must watch the administration. Will they comply, or will they find a loophole? The judge has tried to lock the doors. He made Jay Clayton personally liable. But in this era, court orders are often treated as suggestions. The deeper tragedy is what this tells us about our society. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in July 2019 and died in a cell a month later. He took his secrets to the grave. Ghislaine Maxwell has been in custody for 4 years. The government had all this evidence. They could have been transparent from day one. Instead, they hoarded it. They used it as leverage. They used it as a political football. It took an act of Congress to force their hand. And even then, they botched it so badly that a federal judge had to intervene to protect the victims. This is a system in collapse. It is a system that cannot perform the basic function of justice. It cannot punish the guilty and protect the innocent without fear or favor. Instead, we have a system where political considerations override everything, where a career prosecutor is fired for her lineage, where a sex trafficker is considered for clemency because of her connections, where the appearance of action is valued more than the substance of truth. As these documents are released, do not just read the text, read the context. Look at how the victims are treated. Look at who is controlling the narrative. Look at who is not named. This is not just about Epstein. It is about whether we have a justice system or a protection racket. The way this case has been handled suggests the latter. It suggests that equal justice under law is a myth we tell ourselves to sleep at night. The next few weeks will be a test. Will the administration follow the law? Will the media ask the hard questions about Maureen Comey? Will the victims finally find some measure of peace, or will they be exploited once again? Pay attention. Because if they can do this in the most high-profile case in the world, imagine what they are doing in the dark. Imagine what happens to the cases that no one is watching. This is Chris Hedges for Chris H. Media. We will continue to read the files. We will continue to expose the lies. We will continue to demand the justice that is being denied. Stay vigilant, stay angry, and do not look away. Thank you for watching. Now I leave you with one final question. If Ghislaine Maxwell is granted clemency by this administration, what does that say about the future of justice in America? I want to read your predictions in the comments.